Most respected Thai, dear Sangha, today is the 28th of March in the year 2021. We are in the new hamlet on our day of mindfulness. Please enjoy 3 sounds of the bell invited by Sister Trang Tuyết Hoa. How wonderful is the spring. Maybe what you would want to do most of all at this time is to be outside in the spring. But here we are, sitting inside, hoping to receive some of the Dharma. The spring is most wonderful Dharma. Now the snowflowers, they have gone, but every day there is a new flower for us to enjoy. And then we may think that all those flowers are something outside of ourselves, but actually they are manifestations of our wonderful mind, of our consciousness. And there's really no inside and no outside. So as you take the time to enjoy the wonders of spring, you can also take the time to look deeply. Some of us not enjoy the wonders of spring so much because we have allergy. But we can also take the time to look deeply and see that there is no real inside and outside. And these lovely flowers are being put together by our consciousness. That makes them even more wonderful when we can do it. So, dear Sangha, in a few weeks' time, we shall be having online transmission of the 14 mindfulness trainings. And the reason why we're having this online transmission is because we have been giving online retreats, and in a couple of them we have offered the 5 mindfulness trainings. And at first we were a little bit worried in case there wasn't the right energy over the computer for receiving the mindfulness trainings. But the feedback we had was that it was very successful, that people sitting in their own home in front of the television screen, they felt the energy of the Sangha, and they felt that they had truly received the mindfulness trainings. Some of them even cried because they were so moved. So when we heard like that, we had confidence that online transmission is possible, and we decided that we would have an online transmission of the 14 mindfulness trainings. But at the same time as it's online, of course, we'll also have a transmission in Plum Village for those of us who are in our bubble in Plum Village, because we have some young monks and nuns who haven't yet received the 14 trainings, and we also have some long-term lay practitioners who are ready to receive the trainings. So we've sent a message out to all the local sanghas, letting them know that their aspirants who have been approved by the sangha can register online to receive the trainings. Many people, whether they're Buddhist or not Buddhist, when they first read the mindfulness trainings, the 14 trainings, they are deeply moved. And they immediately feel a connection with the 14 mindfulness trainings. Although the 14 trainings were written by Thai in 1966 for a situation of war in Vietnam, they are the heart of they are the essence of the Buddha's teachings in the form of mindfulness trainings. Normally we think that the Dharma and the Vinaya, that means the precepts and the teachings of the sutras, are two different things. But in the 14 mindfulness trainings we see clearly that the ethics cannot be separated from the deepest teachings of the Buddha on no self, interbeing, emptiness. And that is one reason why when people read the 14 mindfulness trainings, they feel so moved. When we read the introduction to the trainings, we read that they are the boat carrying us, they are the teacher guiding us, and somebody is going to have to fetch for me something to hold the microphone, because my health is such that I'm not able to hold it for a long time. Either somebody come and sit next to me and hold the microphone, or they can get me something to hold it. Yeah. So we read that the teachings are, the 14 mindfulness trainings are the boat carrying us, they are the teacher guiding us. This is something that I really experience in my practice of the 14 mindfulness trainings. I see that we have come together as a sangha, as a fourfold sangha. And when we do that, it is as if we are sitting on a boat. But that boat, it has to be made of something. And it's made of the Dharma. If we look at the 14 mindfulness trainings, we can see that they contain the Dharma, the essence of the Dharma. And there's an ocean of suffering which we are on, and we are in a boat, And we hope that as we practice, we will be able to rescue others whose boat is not as stable as ours is as we go across the ocean. And then we hear that the 14 mindfulness trainings are the teacher guiding us. When the Buddha was about to leave his body on this earth, leave his fleshly body, he was asked, who will be your successor? And he said that his successor was the Dharma and the Vinaya. That means his successor was the teachings of mindfulness trainings. And when I look at the 14 mindfulness trainings, I see that they are Thay's continuation, but not just Thay's continuation, also the Buddha's continuation, because Thay relied on the Buddha, took refuge in the Buddha when Thay compiled the 14 mindfulness trainings. We used to be able to ask Thay questions in question and answer sessions, but now we cannot do that. So when we have a question about the practice, we can always read the 14 mindfulness trainings and we can see our way ahead. We also, when we recite the trainings, we are asked the question, in the past 2 weeks, have you studied, practiced, and observed these trainings? And we have at least 3 breaths in order to be able to look deeply into ourselves. And we don't say yes and we don't say no to that question. We just observe. We observe how we practice that training, and we see how we can go deeper and practice it in further ways that we have not yet practiced. So that is the opportunity when we ask the question. And then after we've had 3 or 4 in and out breaths, the bell master will invite the sound of the bell. And at that point, we will join our palms and bow our head. And when we do that, that is not just a mechanical joining our palms and bowing our head. It is an expression of our deep commitment to go deeper into our practice of the 14 mindfulness trainings, and an expression of our deep gratitude to Thay for having given us these trainings, the teachings of the Buddha in the form of these trainings. When Thay has talked about the 14 mindfulness trainings, he has talked in terms of the 3 actions. We know that we have actions of body, speech, and mind. And the trainings, they cover all those actions. They are guidelines for how we think, how we speak, and how we act with our body. If you read the teachings of the Buddha, you will see that the leading action is the action of the mind. There is a sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, number 56. It's called the Upali Sutra, but it's not Upali. Usually the Jabar, who is the master of the Vinaya. This is another Upali. This Upali is a Jain. And he has been, he's very intelligent, and he is very good at explaining the teachings of the Jains. And one aspect which the Jain teaching differed from the Buddhist teaching was that the leading action is the action of the body. And when the Jains heard this, they wanted to have a sharing with the Buddha to find out why the Buddha said that the mind and not the body action is the leading action. And maybe try and convince the Buddha to change his teaching to go along with the Jain teaching. So they sent Obali to talk to the Buddha about this. And the Buddha explained how important the mind is. If you have a war and you kill many people, it may look as if that action is coming from the body, but in fact its root is in the mind, in the fanaticism, in the ideology that your mind has fabricated, which has made the war possible and made the death of many people possible. So when the Buddha explained like that, Obali was able to go back to the Jains and explain the Buddha's point of view. But the interesting thing is that Obali was very moved when he heard the teaching of the Buddha on the mind action being the most important, and he said he would take refuge in the Buddha. And the Buddha said, it's okay, you can take refuge in the Buddha, but don't forget to take good care of the Jain monks. Make sure you continue to offer them the midday meal, not just offer the Buddhist monks the midday meal. So Obali, he promised he would continue to support the Jains in whatever way he could. So this is just another aspect of the teaching of the Buddha, that we're not caught in ideology, we're not caught in Buddhism, because the first mindfulness training says even Buddhist ones, we will not be caught in theories, in doctrines, even Buddhist ones. Buddhist teachings are Dharma doors which guide us so that we can have compassion and understanding. So when we say that Buddhist teachings are Dharma doors, they are a door which the mindfulness trainings help us to open that door. And when we open the door, we see, and we can go through it, or we cannot go through it. So whatever practice you do, if you are practicing mindful breathing, mindful walking, it's like a door. The teaching the Buddha has given is the door for you to go through. And when you enjoy your breathing, when you enjoy your walking, you see that this is helpful, this is nourishing, this is healing, and that is what gives you faith in the Dharma door. If you, for instance, practice sitting meditation for many years, every morning you diligently practice an hour sitting meditation, but you do not see that your mind has changed, your anger has not transformed, your relations with your loved ones are not improving, then that is a Dharma door which is not working. And we need to go to someone and ask them, go to our sangha and ask them, why is it not working? And how can you help so that I can actually go through the door and enjoy the fruit of going through that door? Thai AB, we had a calligraphy which reads, made by Thai, which reads, with the lotus of, no, we shall grow the lotus of inclusiveness and tolerance from the mud of fanaticism and discrimination. So the first mindfulness training is about openness, about transforming fanaticism. And we may think that fanaticism is something outside of us, but we also have to recognize that fanaticism, it has its seeds in the human consciousness. So whenever we read this precept, we need to look deeply into our own way of thinking, speaking maybe, and see if it is going in the direction of fanaticism. Whenever Thai talked about the German people, Thai did so with a lot of respect and love. I think Thai had much faith in the German people. He often went to lead retreats in Germany. And Thai's deepest wish was to have an institute of Buddhism in Germany, something like a Buddhist university or an applied Buddhist university. Because Thai saw that one thing, that Germany is quite central in Europe, but another thing is that the German mind, the German philosophy, the German language, they convey a certain mind that is able to study and to understand deeply, but at the same time can learn how to apply that deep understanding. And I chose a place in Germany which had a bit of unfortunate history in the 1930s. And some people were not very happy. They said, you should go to a place that has a more fortunate history. And then I made this calligraphy that we want to, because maybe something that happened 70 or 80 years, it's fanaticism that happened that long time ago. The vibration of that is still present and needs to be transformed. So I wanted to go to that particular place in order to be able to bring the energy of inclusiveness, the energy of the first mindfulness trainings. And every time I came to the institute in Germany, he said he felt how the atmosphere was lighter every time because of the practice. Not only Thai felt that, but also the local people who make a shortcut walking through the grounds of the institute, they also feel that the atmosphere has changed. And they walk more slowly, they enjoy the spring flowers as they walk through. I used to lead a retreat in Oldenburg, which I often refer to. And this is one reason why I think I have a lot of respect for the German people. On the day before the last day of the retreat, I would say to the retreatants, if you need to reconcile with somebody, you have until midnight tonight. And many of the retreatants, they use their cell phone in order to be able to call somebody and reconcile. And it was successful. It didn't take many words. Because during the retreat, the retreatants had learned how to breathe mindfully, how to give rise to compassion and love. And they were able to express everything that they had learned in the retreat over the telephone. And some gentlemen, as I would say, reconciled with their fathers, and they let I know the next day that they had done what I said, and their father had maybe wept. They also had wept as they were able to speak lovingly. So we have Dharma doors, and Dharma doors which lead us to practice loving speech and inclusiveness. But they are not doctrines for us to cling to. They are medicine. They're medicine to heal our wrong views. If we have a very strong view about individualism, about being a separate self, we need the lesson of interbeing and non-self in order to be able to heal that view. But if we get caught in the view of impermanence and no self, there is difficult to find the medicine to heal that. So all these first mindfulness trainings are basically about mind action. And in the 5 mindfulness trainings, it's usually said that the first trainings are about body action. So the second training is about not being caught in views, perceptions. It's like we have a view or perception and we grasp to it and we can't let it go. So the second training is to teach us to be able to let go of our views and perceptions. In our monastic retreat, we had a question and answer, and I asked a question about Dharma, new Dharma doors. I encourage us always to find new Dharma doors. And sometimes I'm afraid of new Dharma doors. I wonder if they are going in the right direction or not. So I always think, is there a way we can know whether is a good Dharma door or not? So one brother said to me, look at the second mindfulness training of the Order of Interbeing, which tells us that truth is found in life. Be ready to learn throughout your life. So if you have a new Dharma door, there's only one thing you can do, and that is try it out and be ready to learn. Is it a useful Dharma door or not? Does it nourish people or not? That's not exactly the first step to take. The first step to take is to go to your elder brothers and sisters and ask them, is this Dharma door in accordance with the Dharma seals? Is it in accord with the Dharma seal of no self, the Dharma seal of impermanence, the Dharma seal of nirvana? And then they can look at it. So in the second mindfulness training, we are advised to let go of our own views so that we can listen and we can receive the views of others in the community. We can receive from the community. And that is when the second mindfulness training was revised, I added, so you can be open to the viewpoints of the community. And if you are a layperson, your community may be your family. Sometimes when we are mother and father, we are not so open to the viewpoints of our children. Of course, as mother and father, we have more experience about life, but our children also have their intuition, they have their insight, and because we're all available, the stored consciousness is available to us however young we are. All the seeds of wisdom in the stored consciousness are available to the very young ones. And sometimes they are more accessible to the young ones. So in a family, we can also practice to listen deeply to our children. We have a camera lens which we look through, and we don't see the whole picture. And everyone else has their own camera lens they are looking through. And if we can all let each other know what we see through our camera, we can have a wonderful panorama of what the whole community thinks. So in our community, whether it's our family or our monastic sangha, or whether it's our local lay sangha, we have to have meetings from time to time. And in those meetings we let people know what we see through our lens. And we share it. It's our contribution. And then we receive it. We receive what others say. And finally, if we are skillful, we can synthesize everyone's view, and we can go in the direction of the wisdom of the sangha eyes. And somebody once said to me, sometimes the collective insight is not the best insight. So normally in the sangha we say that if we see 90% of the members are going in that direction and we are just 10%, then we should go along with the 90%. Because we have faith in the sangha eyes. Anyway, somebody said to me, that's not always true. Sometimes the 10%, they're right. They have the more insight than the 90%. And I think this may be true out in the world, because in places where people do not practice, there could be a collective energy going in a direction which is not a wholesome direction. But in the sangha it's different, because we all practice. Sometimes I see the sangha like a pool. And the sangha is standing around the pool. And everyone take what is best in them from their practice and they throw it into the pool. So we have a pool of everyone's practice. And some people may throw in just a little bit of practice, and some people may throw in a large amount of practice of understanding and love. But everybody will throw in something. And that pool like that is the sangha eyes, the sangha resource which we have, and what it makes the sangha into a jewel. Something we can take refuge in and others can take refuge in. So out in the world, in businesses, they don't have that pool where people are putting in the best of their practice of love and understanding as a resource. So that means that sometimes their decisions go in the wrong direction. So we can trust the majority, we can trust the sangha eyes. But that doesn't mean to say that we take a majority vote when we want to make a decision. That is, that is very not a good way to conduct a meeting. We want to synthesize our views. We want to give everybody the opportunity to express their view so that we can hear it. And when we've heard people express their view, it changes our own view. As soon as I hear somebody else say something, I think, oh, I need to modify my view, or I need to drop it altogether. So, there are certain perceptions, there are certain ways of thinking that we hold on to. And psychologists say that the human mind is very afraid of uncertainty. This is because when we were animal species and we woke up in the early morning with the day ahead, we did not know if we were going to be gobbled up that day by another animal. And if you look at animals, sitting on the bird, sitting on the branch, or a deer in the Buddha garden, you will see that every so often they turn the head around to make sure there's nothing coming up in order to eat them up. So we have that in our stored consciousness, that fear we don't know what is going to happen. But as human beings, we have the neocortex that animals don't have, and we use that in order to try and deal with our fears of uncertainty, our inability to live in the present moment and always be taking care of the future. And apparently one of the ways that we try to take care of this uncertainty is by making goals. Make a goal for the future which we are going to realize. So, for example, there was a team from the United States going to, they call it Assault Everest. They want to climb to the top of Mount Everest. So in order to do this, you have to train quite a bit. And you have to learn how to work as a team. And you also have to encourage each other. And this particular group who are going to go up Everest, they thought that a very important element of their success is to really have a goal. So they kept telling each other, our goal is to be successful and get to the top of the mountain. And it's imagination in a way, because we've no idea. We've never been up Everest before, but we just have in our imagination, and we cling to that view, that we're going to get to the top of Everest. And climbers of Everest have to, are told that if by 4 o'clock in the afternoon you haven't arrived at camp number, I don't know which camp it was, number 4 or something, don't go on. You have to turn back, because you won't make it to the top before darkness falls. And in that time of day on Everest there are usually blizzards and strong winds, so it's very dangerous. When you get to Camp 4, it's after 4 o'clock, turn back. So normally the climbers, they do that because they understand that they can let go of their goal. But this particular team, who were very goal-oriented, after 4 o'clock they got to Camp 4, and somebody at Camp 3 looking through a telescope could see, and they didn't come back. They kept going on. And they didn't ever come back. So according to the psychologists who were following them, that was because they clung to their goal. And it seems that in the business world, goal-oriented is something that people believe that will make their business successful, but it's not always so. Apparently, when General Motors, they lost the market to the Japanese cars, which were cheaper cars, they made a goal that they were going to get back 39% of the market. And so they impressed this goal on everybody and say it's sure that if we really want to do it, we will do it. But in fact it didn't work. They lost more and more of the market. Their goal, they thought they would realize it by advertising and promotion. It didn't work. So we are lucky in the second mindfulness training and in the teachings of Buddhism that we have the teaching on aimlessness. And the teaching on aimlessness is a deep teaching about going deeply in the present moment. How we are in the present moment is what will determine what happens in the future. So all we need to do is to invest all our energy into taking care of the present moment. We don't have to live in an imaginary world about a goal which we are caught in and we cannot let go of. The deepest teaching in Plum Village is the teaching of I have arrived, I am home. And the place I have arrived and are at home is the present moment. And when I'm walking, this is what I can do. Even if I'm just walking in my apartment, with every step, I can arrive in the here and now. And at the end of that poem, we have the words, in the ultimate I dwell. Because actually when you arrive in the here, is put your foot on the ground of reality. That is how things are in the here and now. And you can touch the ultimate dimension because the present moment is a moment that doesn't have a beginning and doesn't have an end. So the Buddha said that the absolute security is the security of nirvana. And nirvana is can be touched in touching the present moment. So the third mindfulness training is also about taking care of our mind. It's about not forcing others to think the way we do, to agree with us. Normally we have the tendency to like people who agree with us and dislike people who don't agree with us. But in fact we owe a lot to people who don't agree with us because they help us to modify our view. They help us to open up our narrowness. And in that mindfulness training, we also learn that not only must we let go of our own tendency to want to force others to think like we do, but we can learn how to help those who are caught in fanaticism. We want to help people let go of their fanatical views. That is stated in the training. And you may wonder, how can you do that? How can you help someone? The other day I was watching a film. It's about XR, about Stephen Rebellion. About in London and people demonstrating or taking non-violent action in order to bring the attention of the mass of people to the fact that our planet is in danger. Life on our planet is in danger. So these people, both young and old, had decided to do an action in the city of London, which is the kind of business part of London. So they were sitting down in the road so that the traffic couldn't, in the early morning when people weren't going to work, so the traffic couldn't traffic, couldn't circulate. And so they were sitting there peacefully, and some people who were trying to get to work were getting very angry and frustrated. So they would come up to the people who were sitting in the road, and they would say, "Do you realize that you are obstructing people from going about their lawful business? Do you realize that the problems of global warming, they start in India and in China and not in the city of London?" And a lot of shouting and a lot of anger. And those who are demonstrating, they just sit there, breathe in and out, and they don't say anything. And then, of course, there's also the police who come along, and the police, they try to be very polite and calm, how they've been trained. So then the police will say something, "Do you realize that you are obstructing the traffic?" Which of course we realize that's why we're there. Do you realize that if you don't move, we're going to have to arrest you? We don't want to arrest you, but and they keep asking questions, and again you remain silent, you don't say anything. Because you don't have a chance to say anything. They don't want to listen, they just want to tell you their point of view. And so by sitting there and not reacting, not getting angry in return, remaining peaceful, remaining calm, to me that is a way to help people who are caught in fanaticism. Even at the time they are angry, still you're peace, you're calm, you're not retaliating. That is a seed which is sown in their consciousness. So helping people drop their fanatical views. If we get a chance, of course, we can ask questions to help them understand where their suffering is coming from. But if we don't get a chance, the ability to send out our loving kindness towards that person, the ability to see that that person who's shouting at me is suffering, and because of that suffering I can give rise to compassion. That is already the way to help those who are caught in fanatical views. The fourth mindfulness training is the training that has been revised most of all in the last revision of 2012. It is a training that is, I should say that the first three trainings are based in the teachings of the Buddha, which were given, the earliest teachings of the Buddha that are given in the Sutta Nipata about not being caught in views and theories and things. And this fourth training is based in the teaching on the Four Noble Truths. And the revision that has been made of this training is that now we don't begin by being in touch with the suffering around us. Because when I wrote this training, first of all, in 1966, it was to help us not sit in the in our temple or our monastery when people were suffering outside, and to be aware that there was suffering happening around us and to go out and help. But now, the main emphasis at the beginning of the training is that we take care of our own suffering. When I was living in India, up in the Himalaya, whenever we wanted to go somewhere, we had to go on foot. We had to go through little villages when we came down from the mountain. We came little villages where the people were very poor, and the children didn't really have many clothes. Or if they did, they were ragged, and they were playing in the huts that they lived in were made of mud. But whenever we went to the village, they would be laughing and playing, and they'd come up and talk to us. They used to say to me, "Boy or girl?" I'm very short hair, and I wear them. Anyway, they were very happy to me. The children were so happy. And then when I came back to Europe, I look at the children, they don't have that happiness that the children, the poor children have. Although they have 3 good meals a day, they have plenty of clothes to wear, they don't have that happiness that the children in India have. And I think this is something to do with the fact that our internal suffering now is very great, and therefore we really need to take care of that first of all, before we try to take care of the suffering around us. Because the first thing about the Four Noble Truths is there is suffering. And there is suffering is very deep truth, because normally we want to run away and we don't want to recognize. Of course, we all know intellectually that there is suffering, but have we actually stopped and felt that suffering deeply so that we are able to see where it is coming from? Have we stopped in order to take care of that suffering so that it doesn't have to keep coming up? And so that is the first noble truth, to recognize, yes, I have that suffering and I need to take care of it. Not cover it up, not run away from it. And when I understand the roots of my own suffering, then I also understand the roots of other people's suffering. And the last part of the training is also about the need to help others be aware of the suffering in the world. And I suppose that is what XR is wanting to do, to make people, to help people be aware. And we can use the telephone or audio visio and so on to be in touch with suffering and help others to be aware of suffering. So in order to help people see the suffering, we can use art, we can use writing, we can use acting, and we can have a lot of joy. And in using those media, in order to be able to educate people so that they understand the suffering and the causes of the suffering, what is making this suffering come about. fifth mindfulness training. Now we listen to sound of the bell. So we could say that the first four mindfulness trainings is about the mind action, taking care of our mind action. But the fifth mindfulness training is also about taking care of our body action. It's about wholesome, healthy living that comes from our consumption. We all need pleasant feelings, and some of our pleasant feelings can be very wholesome, and some of our pleasant feelings are unhealthy. So the fifth mindfulness training is about the four kinds of food which nourish us. And it's also about our unhealthy ways of trying to satisfy our desire. So when we talk about the four foods, we usually begin by talking about consciousness food, the most basic kind of food. And consciousness here means the store consciousness, the consciousness that has all the seeds. So this is important kind of food because we nourish ourselves with those seeds in consciousness. And we also nourish the seeds in consciousness by the other kinds of food we take in. So all the memories, not only from our own lifetimes, but also the lifetime of our ancestors and of our society, all come from store consciousness. And the Buddha talks about store consciousness. If we use the wrong kind of seeds, they are like a sharp-pointed knife that can stab us every day. So to take care of consciousness is very important. And there is a word in English, is the word to ruminate. To ruminate is what a cow does. It swallows the grass, which goes into one of its stomachs, and then brings the grass up again into its mouth and chews it again. And that is, chewing it again is called ruminating. And this is what we do from our store consciousness. We bring up things and we ruminate on them. It means we think about them again and again and then swallow them back again. And we do this many times, so it becomes very easy neural pathway for that particular memory to keep coming up. I noticed this recently in myself. Something I ruminate on, this is example. Not so many years ago, my mother and my father, they both died. And something I ruminate on is not so much the death, the actual death, but what happened before. That is the last years of their life, the last month, the last days of their life. Maybe most of all the last months and the last days. And every time it comes up in me, what should I have done? What could I have done better? And it's like this, I see the suffering and I ask myself, what could I have done better? And then I make up a story in reply to that. Oh, I could have done that, and I could have done that. But it's all imagination, because actually I didn't do that. But I have in my mind the idea that if I had done that, there would have been less suffering. Yeah. And when I notice that is what I'm doing, I feel compassion for myself. By making up this story, I'm trying to make myself feel better. Oh, I could have done that, wouldn't it have been nice? But in fact, what I'm doing is making this neural pathway stronger and stronger. And now, as soon as I start thinking, I get a picture, an image in my mind of those last days of my parents. I have to take that and put it in a different direction. I have to be strong with myself. Otherwise, I'm using the consciousness food to, like a sharp pointed knife. It's not helping me. So there are many ways we can make consciousness food something nourishing, and especially in the spring now, so many beautiful things to look at, and we allow those sense impressions to go into our store consciousness, and in years to come they will nourish us. At first, when we had the summer opening in Plum Village, the monk retreat, it was quite hard work. And then as the years went on, people became better and better at organizing it, and it became more and more enjoyable. And the summer retreat, it watered many good seeds in my store of consciousness. And when I had to leave Plum Village and go to the United States, go to Germany, every time the summer retreat started in Plum Village, all those seeds from the time I'd been in Plum Village, I let them come up and nourish me. So the nourishment, it can happen years afterwards. And what we sow in our consciousness today is so important for our future. So, dear Sangha, today our Dharma talk cut short quite a bit, one way and another. So I think I better stop because I don't want to deprive everyone of that walking meditation. I want to keep to the schedule. So I'm rather stopping in the middle without making a conclusion. So I just say one word in conclusion problem to the Dharma doors and the teachings of the Buddha are also ethics. There is no teaching of the Buddha that is not ethics, and they are encapsulated in the 14 mindfulness trainings. Mindfulness is ethics. So if you're not eating your formal lunch mindfully, waiting for the bell, waiting for everybody to come in, maybe we could say that is not the most ethical way to have a mindful way. Huh? So please enjoy your formal life. You're eating with the Buddha.